Welcome to Calm Coding.
Hey, everyone.
This is your weekly cybersecurity podcast that covers the very latest news and stories shaping our digital world. I'm just thrilled you were joining us today.
Yeah, we have a really fascinating stack of threat intelligence to get through this week.
We really do. And our mission for this week is to basically cut right through all the noise of the recent headlines, right?
Yeah.
We want to extract those critical sort of aha moments about how the balance of power in our industry is fundamentally shifting right under our feet.
It's a big shift, too.
Huge! I mean, just as a quick preview of the menu today, we are looking at a world where AI agents are literally hacking systems completely autonomously.
Which is terrifying.
Totally. And we're also going to break down a critical privilege escalation vulnerability hiding in plain sight within a really popular Mac VPN. Plus, WhatsApp making a completely unprecedented move to recommend specific anti-censorship tools.
And to top it off,
Yeah.
we'll analyze a really radical new proposal out of Europe to make digital privacy a basic state-sponsored utility.
Right. So, I mean, at first glance, these might seem like four totally separate stories, right?
Yeah, but they all connect to this single, really profound shift. The underlying tools of both offensive exploitation and defensive posturing, they're just reaching this entirely new level of sophistication.
Yeah.
And because of that, the foundational responsibility for who actually secures user data is evolving rapidly. So whether we're looking at autonomous AI frameworks, reshaping the threat model, or governments actually stepping in to subsidize basic security, the whole environment is just changing.
Okay, let's unpack this Anthropic cyber espionage report first. Because this AI arms race is, well, it's officially moving past the theoretical phase.
It absolutely is.
And we should probably clearly define agentic AI for you listening, just to set the stage, because we are no longer just talking about an LLM acting as a coding co-pilot.
Right, or just generating a convincing phishing email while a human operator does the actual driving.
Exactly. We are talking about autonomous execution loops. An AI is given a high-level objective, and it independently makes decisions, executes commands, reads the output, and pivots through a target system all on its own.
And the telemetry from Anthropic's recent report put some really hard, honestly staggering numbers on that shift. They observed Chinese threat actors utilizing AI agents to independently perform between 80 and 90% of their attack operations.
80 to 90%, that is wild.
Right. That involves the agents autonomously conducting target recon, scanning for exposed infrastructure, identifying unpatched CVEs, selecting the right exploit, and then actually executing it to gather credentials.
Wow.
The human operator basically just becomes a supervisor. They aren't an active participant in the kill chain anymore.
And the scale, the sheer velocity of these campaigns is what really shifts the paradigm for me. The report detailed these agents operating at thousands of requests per second.
You literally can't fight that manually.
You can't. And the most alarming metric for me was that human intervention was required fewer than 7 times at critical decision points during the entire intrusion process.
Fewer than 7 times.
It's essentially a self-driving exploitation machine. When you remove the human bottleneck from the execution phase, the timeline and the manpower you need to mount a sophisticated campaign just plummets.
It drops to 0.
Yeah, so it makes complete sense that 61% of UK executives are now citing autonomous AI threats as their top concern.
What's fascinating here is how this alters the economics of cybercrime. Specifically, this democratization of malware development.
Oh, absolutely.
If you look at Anthropic's 2025 Threat Intelligence Report, it highlights that threat actors with minimal technical skills are now operating at a level that used to be strictly reserved for advanced, persistent threats.
State-sponsored level stuff.
Exactly. The report noted individuals using the AI model Claude to develop and sell fully functional ransomware variants on underground forums. And they were selling them for just $400 to $1,200.
That is absurdly cheap for a custom variant.
Right. And they relied entirely on the AI to handle all the complex evasion techniques and the cryptographic implementation.
And it isn't just malware generation either. It is actual vulnerability discovery and exploitation. Look at Google's Big Sleep project.
Oh yeah, the DeepMind and Project Zero collaboration.
Exactly. They recently deployed this multi-phase set of agents that successfully identified zero-day vulnerabilities in widely used open source projects.
Just completely autonomously found 0
Found
days.
them without a human.
Yeah.
And then you have that 2024 academic paper demonstrating that GPT-4, when it was simply handed the text descriptions of vulnerabilities, could successfully exploit 87% of the tested one-day vulnerabilities entirely on its own.
It's incredible.
It reads the CVE, writes the exploit script, fires it at the target, analyzes the error logs, adjusts the payload, and just loops until it pops a shell.
Well, and the defensive implications for you in the industry are massive. If threat actors have fleets of autonomous bots operating at thousands of requests a second, your traditional human-driven patch management is dead.
It just cannot scale to meet that volume.
It can't. So defenders have to deploy agentic defenses to fight back. Internal red teams and defensive practitioners are already engineering their own AI agents that deeply understand a company's specific software environment.
So how does that actually work under the hood?
Well, they break down defensive workflows into modular tasks, and it relies really heavily on implementing what we call dynamic knowledge graphs.
Right, where it maps out all the relationships.
Exactly. A knowledge graph maps out the intricate dependencies across an organization's entire code base. So when a defensive AI agent gets a vulnerability report, it queries that knowledge graph to evaluate the blast radius of a potential patch.
Ah, so it mathematically figures out what microservices are going to crash if a specific library gets updated.
Precisely. And from there, an automated chain of agents can autonomously triage the vulnerability, filter out the false positives, generate the actual code fix, and then submit a merge request.
That is wild.
They can even run the patch through the CI/CD pipeline right in a sandbox. The goal here is reserving human oversight only for high-risk architectural changes. Low-risk routine patches are deployed entirely autonomously to keep pace with the offensive agents.
Okay, but this reliance on automated, complex tools to maintain our defensive perimeter, that leads us perfectly into our next topic.
Because the tools themselves can be the problem.
Exactly. If we are trusting specialized software to protect our infrastructure, what happens when those very tools have critical flaws?
Right.
Cybersecurity researchers at SecureLayer 7 just published this report detailing a critical vulnerability in the IPVanish Mac VPN app. And it is a perfect case study in this.
Yeah, the SecureLayer 7 researchers disclosed an 8.8 high severity flaw. And this allows for a critical local privilege escalation, or LPE.
Which is never good.
No. The vulnerability is actually rooted in a background component known as the privilege helper tool. Specifically, it involves the OpenVPN path parameter that's used to manage secure network interfaces for the OpenVPN protocol on the Mac.
So to make this relatable for you listening, it's exactly like having a highly clued security guard standing at the front door of your computer, but he never actually checks anyone's ID.
That's a great analogy.
Because this helper tool is responsible for modifying network interfaces, it runs with root privileges. But any unprivileged local app on the Mac can ask this helper tool to execute code as the root user. It just gives total control over the operating system.
And the researchers actually found two distinct exploitation paths for this.
Okay, break those down for us.
The first one is a relatively straightforward parameter injection. An attacker just tricks the OpenVPN path into launching a malicious program instead of the legitimate OpenVPN daemon.
Simple enough.
But the second method is a major logic flaw that systematically bypasses Apple's strict built-in security.
Because macOS has really strict controls to prevent untrusted executables from running.
Right. But this vulnerability manages to turn the VPN's own security checks against the operating system. See, the privileged helper tool is designed to verify the safety signatures of files, but it only performs this check on files that are explicitly labeled as running programs.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so a hacker hides their malicious code inside a harmless, non-running file format. The IPVanish helper looks at the file, sees it lacks executable permissions, assumes it's harmless, and completely skips the signature check.
So it bypasses the guard entirely.
Yes. And then, in just a catastrophic mishandling of file operations, the helper tool moves that unvalidated file into a secure area and accidentally changes the settings running a chmod command to make it executable.
Wow. So the defensive tool itself actually arms the malware and grants it root access.
Exactly.
Now, we definitely need to reassure you, the listener, and put this in context. This is a local privilege escalation. A hacker cannot do this remotely over the internet.
Right. They can't just scan your IP and pop your machine.
Exactly. They already in a foothold on your Mac, maybe through a prior phishing payload or a browser exploit.
Yes, physical access or an existing infection.
Furthermore, if you just use the default WireGuard protocol in IPVanish, you aren't affected by this at all. It's tied to the OpenVPN implementation.
That's a crucial point. And IPVanish has acknowledged the disclosure, and they are working on a patch.
So what's the immediate fix for users right now?
In the meantime, the advice for OpenVPN users is to go into the Mac app settings, locate the OpenVPN driver section, and just click Uninstall. That removes the vulnerable privileged helper from the system entirely.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We just talked about a vulnerability inside a commercial VPN product. But when we look at the global stage right now, VPNs are becoming absolute lifelines.
They aren't just for watching out-of-market sports anymore.
Not at all. And that brings us to this unprecedented move by WhatsApp.
Yeah, this was huge news.
Meta-owned WhatsApp has historically offered really generic advice, right? Like if their service is blocked in your country, they just casually suggest using a VPN.
Very vaguely.
But recently, they explicitly updated their help center to name two specific tools, Mullvad and Amnezia VPN. And they even directed users to the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, for digital safety reading.
Seeing a corporate behemoth like Meta directly name third-party, open-source privacy providers, that is a massive departure from standard industry practice.
It really is. So why these two? Out of a totally saturated market, why did Meta handpick Mullvad and Amnezia?
It comes down to their really specialized tech regarding anonymity and censorship evasion. Let's look at Mullvad first. They're based in Sweden, and their approach to privacy is practically fanatical.
They don't even use an email to sign up, right?
No email, no name, no password. You just generate a random cryptographic account number, and that is your only identifier on their network.
You can even mail them physical cash to pay for it.
Exactly. Total financial anonymity. And on the technical side, they recently added the QUIC protocol across all their apps. Because QIC encrypts more of the initial handshake process, it significantly improves unblocking and makes the traffic much harder for basic firewalls to fingerprint.
Okay, and then Amnezia VPN tackles this from a totally different angle.
Right. Amnezia is a Russia-based project built explicitly to defeat harsh censorship and deep packet inspection, or DPI firewalls.
And DPI is what authoritarian regimes use to analyze traffic and drop standard VPN connections.
Precisely. Amnezia counters this by actively cloaking the VPN traffic to make it look exactly like regular, boring HTTPS web browsing.
Which makes it nearly impossible to block without shutting down the entire internet.
Exactly. Plus, it's open source, and it allows users to easily self-host the VPN on their own virtual private server.
So the government can't just block a known list of commercial VPN IP addresses.
Right. And its proprietary protocol, Amnezia WG, is so brutally effective against DPI that other major providers like VPN and Windscribe are literally integrating it into their own networks.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are navigating a landscape in 2026 where digital authoritarianism is visibly rising.
It is.
WhatsApp is essentially ensuring that their users know that end-to-end encryption remains intact even when routed through a VPN. For many people around the world right now, a VPN is no longer a luxury. It is vital communication infrastructure.
And that introduces a really fascinating socioeconomic debate, because if privacy tools like hardened VPNs and ad blockers and password managers are now essential infrastructure for daily life, why do we have to pay private companies for them?
Why is the burden on the user?
Exactly. The commercial market is incredibly fragmented, it's too complex for the average person, and frankly, it's expensive.
Which leads us directly to this radical proposal out of the Netherlands.
Yes.
On March 2, 2026, Dutch MPs Barbara Kathman and Don Cedar introduced this motion calling for the government to partner with tech companies to provide a free, basic digital security package to every single citizen.
They're calling it a digital first aid kit.
I love that framing. And the contents of this toolkit are pretty comprehensive. It includes a VPN, a network-level ad blocker, antivirus software, and a password manager.
A full suite.
Yeah. And the catalysts for this motion were severe. The Netherlands recently suffered some massive data leaks.
The Odido telecom breach? For one,
Yeah. Yes, and then that incredibly sensitive breach in August 2025 involving the national cervical cancer screening data.
it's just devastating.
It exposed the reality that average users just do not know how to protect themselves after these third-party breaches occur.
Well, the MPs are arguing for a fundamental philosophical shift here. Their core argument is that online safety shouldn't depend on your income.
Right.
They're saying that in a fully digitized society, the state has a structural duty to provide baseline cryptographic protection to its citizens. It's treating digital security exactly like a public utility,
Hmm.
like the water supply.
It's a huge shift, and it creates this incredibly sharp contrast with neighboring Denmark.
Oh, the difference is night and day.
It really is, because just a few months prior, in December 2025, Denmark strongly considered banning VPNs outright to curb illegal streaming.
Right. They wanted to enforce digital copyright protections.
Now, to be fair, they scrapped that proposal after a massive public backlash, but it shows a clear ideological divide.
The dichotomy there is just fascinating. Denmark viewed encryption tools primarily as a method for evasion and illicit activity. But the Netherlands is viewing those exact same tools as a method for societal inclusion and national cyber resilience.
It really highlights the global tension right now over who is responsible for securing the end user.
It absolutely does.
So what does this all mean when we bring it all together for you listening today?
Yeah, let's synthesize this.
We are in an era where AI can run an entire hacking campaign from start to finish for a few $100s.
Autonomously.
Autonomously. Meanwhile, our trusted apps, like these Mac VPNs, require constant vigilance against critical flaws. And secure communication has become such a battleground that tech giants are recommending hardcore privacy tools, and governments are debating treating them like the water supply.
This raises an important question, though, because the common thread connecting all of these stories today is autonomy.
Autonomy, yeah.
Whether it's an AI agent autonomously hunting for a zero-day vulnerability, or you taking the personal initiative to install an ad blocker or deploy a self-hosted Amnezia instance, you have to be proactive about your digital footprint. Passive security is just dead.
It is. And I actually want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought to mull over based on everything we discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about that Dutch proposal to turn things like password managers and VPNs into standard state-provided utilities for millions of citizens.
Right, the digital first aid kit.
Exactly. But if national governments successfully centralize the provisioning of those tools, how do we ensure that those state-backed centralized systems don't inadvertently become the single most tempting, high-value honeypot for the very autonomous AI threat actors we discussed at the top of the show?
That is a terrifying thought to end on.
Something to explore on your own. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's analysis. Stay curious, stay safe out there, and we will catch you next time. This has been Calm Coding.